And we are back. This is Elliot Williams in for Julie Mason on The Julie Mason Show, SiriusXM POTUS 124. My next guest is Byron Donalds, representing the 19th Congressional District of Florida. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. You can follow him on the X's or the Twitters at Byron Donalds. Congressman, thank you for being here.
It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, anytime. So we ended with our last guest. It was a reporter from CBS News, Scott MacFarlane, talking about spending and the government funding going into next year. And I would just love to hear your thoughts on sort of the Freedom Caucus's latest sort of positioning with respect to funding the government for next year.
Our position is very clear. The bill that increased the debt ceiling called for federal spending to come in next year at $1.59 trillion on discretionary spending and defense spending. That's it. And so what we're saying is that the $1.59 trillion of domestic and defense spending, that should be applied just like what Joe Biden signed into law in the debt deal. No more, no less. What is happening on Capitol Hill is that there are other gimmicks, I will say, that are being used to take federal spending over $1.6 trillion at a time where the national debt is going to hit $34 trillion in about another month or so. And also at the same time that we're running a $1.6 to $1.8 trillion deficit, and we are not in a war and there's no pandemic. So the Freedom Caucus position is we need to be pulling back on federal spending. So that's our position, and we're going to stay to that.
Now, the Freedom Caucus did push for, I believe, more or at least more aggressive cuts that I think you're backing off of now. And why is that?
Well, I mean, look, a lot of things occurred after Kevin McCarthy was deposed. And even then, there was never a full agreement amongst House Republicans about where we felt federal spending should come in at. After Speaker McCarthy was gone, and now you have Speaker Johnson, what the members want to be able to do is accomplish a lot of the policy changes that we've been fighting for through the federal agencies. A lot of the stuff are the federal agencies actually following the letter of the law that Congress has passed and not trying to carve out new areas under the law that are subject to some future court decision, i.e. the asylum process on the southern border. Congress never anticipated asylum looking like that. It was never contemplated for asylum to be used like this, but Joe Biden's abusing it. So what we want to see have happen now is let's get the spending cuts in. Let's just cut from last year because we need to do that. Let's get a lot of these policy changes in that need to occur at the federal agencies, and then let's move on to securing our southern border.
Let me ask you a question on the asylum point, and I'd love to hear your point of view with respect to what is different now with respect to the application of asylum law that was any different under, and forget even President Trump, President George W. Bush and Joe Biden. Is there, in your perception, a shift in some way in which the United States is now approaching asylum that is unique to President Biden and the Biden administration?
Well, yeah, what's unique to President Biden is the massive amount of asylum applicants that they're allowing. Like, we've never allowed this many asylum applications at any point in American history. Name the president, it did not occur. Even when you had a spike of illegal immigration during the presidency of George W. Bush, it was nothing like what Joe Biden has allowed. And because the drug cartels know that our policy currently in the United States is to let people cross the border, to begin to process them immediately and give them an asylum hearing, and then to transport them through the United States, the drug cartel is going to make $16 billion this year trafficking people into our country. Before you even get to narcotics and before you even get to the young kids who are sold into sex slavery, all happening in real time. So the core of this is the fact that Joe Biden has allowed the asylum provisions under immigration law to become this super highway of immigrating into the United States, because it takes about 6 or 7 years for the entire asylum proceeding to be completed.
Yeah.
But border agents will tell you only 95 border agents, last point, border agents will tell you only about 5% of the people claiming asylum will actually go through the entire asylum process. The vast majority won't even go to the second hearing.
Now, a position you have taken for quite some time is that we need to, quote, secure the border. And frankly, some of your colleagues, I don't know if you've used this language precisely, and correct me if you haven't, but a lot of your colleagues have used the term that our border is open. Do you believe that the southwest border is open?
Yes, 100%.
Open.
We are taking in 250,000 migrants a month through our southern border. That has never occurred in the history of our country. But let me repeat, that has never occurred in the history of our country. Never. So if you have a situation where 250,000 people can just come across our border any given month, and frankly, every single month, your border's open.
Sure, but I guess here's the question I have. When there's over 19,000 Border Patrol agents, many of them stationed at the southwest border, you and I both know there are points of entry all along across from San Diego all the way over to whatever, Brownsville, Texas, or wherever else. They are apprehending people and trucks and cargo along the way. That might be a sign of not an open border. Now, it may not be secure to the extent that you may wish, and we could talk about what it means to actually secure the border, but the notion of an open border seems to suggest a kind of lawlessness that is not present in the United States today. But tell me what you think.
I think a couple things. Number one, when we're having more of a semantical argument about open or porous or closed, that's semantics.
Well, that's a big distinction, though.
Hold on, this is important.
Sure.
To families who have lost a loved one to a fentanyl overdose,
right,
because of the fact that fentanyl trafficking has spiked dramatically under Joe Biden, for those families, our border is open. For people who are in New York or Chicago right now and they're watching the soccer fields that their kids supposed to play on and it's not being used to shelter migrants, for those families, the border is open. I think overall, if you want to talk about actual border security, there are some serious things we can do. The first thing is Remain in Mexico policy. Yeah. If we actually went back to Remain in Mexico policy and turned people around and not at the southern border and did not process them into the United States, then what would happen as a result is the cartel wouldn't continue to ship people into the United States. And number two, the Mexican government would actually shut down their border, and they would stop the flow moving into Mexico and push everybody back into the Darien Gap. Once you do that, the coyotes have no business model to traffic people. It starts with our policy here in the United States. If we do that and a few other key things, we can get this back under control in pretty quick fashion, because if the drug cartels ain't making money, they're not going to allow anybody to traverse their territory.
Thank you. So this is Representative Byron Donalds from the 19th Congressional District of Florida. I know you've got to go in about a minute or so, and so I just want to ask you two really quick questions. Sure. One, do you support right now the impeachment of President Trump? Oh, my God, President Biden.
Well, we haven't filed articles of impeachment. We're still doing our inquiry. So as a member of oversight, we're continuing to go through our investigations. We fully anticipate Hunter Biden's going to come in and cooperate for a deposition and an open hearing, and we're going to let the facts lead on that. Well, if it leads to impeachment, which is what I actually believe the facts lead to impeachment, then yes, I think the president should be impeached, because Congress has a responsibility to put in check an executive that is in violation of the protocols of impeachment, whether it's bribery, high crimes and misdemeanors, or treason.
Got it. And my Freudian slip earlier when I said the word Trump, because that's my next question to you. 2024, you have endorsed President Trump. Would you accept the vice presidential nomination if he offered it to you?
I mean, who wouldn't?
Me? I don't know.
Who wouldn't, man?
Sorry.
Listen, I think that for me, it's about wanting to save this country. I'm here to help and get the job done. And, I'm solutions focused. I'm a Republican. I'm very conservative. But this is not about a Republican-Democrat thing. It's about the country and the future for everybody. So if that's something that's open to me, would I do that? Yeah, I would, because I want to do everything possible to help get our country on track. Because despite our political disagreements in America, we are the best country in the world. It ain't close.
Representative Byron Donalds, without hesitation, would accept the vice presidential nomination. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your views.
All right, take it easy.
Take care.